Hey, welcome to Let's Talk Song. This is the first episode of 3-Minute Theory Thursday, where you get very short videos with the most important musical basics. And today you are going to learn all about notes. The first thing that you need to know is that there is basically only 7 notes, and they are named after the first 7 letters of the alphabet. So it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Once we reach G, the next one is A, and it repeats over and over. The A note on a keyboard is always the white key that's got 2 black keys to the left and 1 to the right. Let's find that. This is the A, 2 to the left, 1 to the right. Same here, this is the A, 2 to the left, 1 to the right. Now, from that A, we can go to the right, which means up, and we play A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And once we reach the G, we continue with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and so on and so forth, all the way up, all the way down. Now, to get to the black keys, we either have to sharpen or flatten one of the white notes. Sharpening means moving a tiny bit to the right, and flattening means moving a tiny bit to the left. So with that A, we get to A sharp by moving a little bit to the right and to A flat by moving a little bit to the left. That also means that one black key always can have 2 different meanings depending on where we come from. This here, for example, can be an A sharp or also a B flat. When the notes change their names depends a little bit on the context, and is something that we are going to look at in the following videos. This was 3-Minute Theory Thursday episode 1. If you like this, make sure to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, to give me comments with suggestions for 3-Minute Theory Thursday topics, to get the almost but not quite complete guide to songwriting if you want to expand your knowledge very intensively. Stay tuned for more theory videos, music analysis, and first reaction videos. See you! Hey, this is Let's Talk Song. Welcome to the second episode of 3-Minute Theory Thursday, where you get compact videos with the most important musical theory basics. Today we are going to learn what whole steps and half steps are, and we are going to build a major scale. So first of all, half steps. One half step is a key to the right or a key to the left, no matter if this key is white or black. So if we look at the A, a half step to the right would be A sharp, and a half step to the left would be A flat. A whole step is 2 of those half steps, no matter if black or white. So from the A, a whole step up is 1 and 2 half steps. From the A, a whole step down is 1 and 2 half steps down. This is important to know when building your major scale, because every major scale has got the same building blocks. A major scale is always composed of 2 whole steps, followed by a half step, then 3 whole steps, then a half step. You can also say whole, half, whole, half, or 2-2-1, 2-2-2-1, depending on your preference. This is the building block for all major scales. Let's look at this. The easiest major scale is the C major scale. And starting on the C, we do whole, that means 2 steps, whole, that means 2 steps, half, then whole, 2 steps, whole, and half. We land on the C again, and we have got C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Back to C. The C major scale is so great on piano because it has got no accidentals and it doesn't need to include the black keys. But you can form that type of major scale also with any other root note, including the black keys, following that 2-2-1, 2-2-2-1 rule. For example, the G major scale is G, 2, A, 2, B, 1, C, 2, D, 2. Now it gets juicy. 2, that means we go to the F sharp, and 1 to land on the G again. This was all about half steps, whole steps, and major scales. If you like this, please make sure to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, to comment and ask me stuff that you don't know about music theory. Also, if you want to have a really broad overview of everything related to songwriting, get the almost but not quite complete guide to songwriting, please come back for more music theory, music analysis, and first reaction videos. See you next week. Bye bye. Hey, this is Let's Talk Song. Welcome to episode number 3 of 3 Minutes Theory Thursday, where we look at the basics of music theory. In episode 1, we looked at the fundamentals, the keys and the notes. In episode 2, we looked at how to build a major scale and how to combine whole steps and half steps. And this episode number 3 is all about intervals and what kind of intervals there are. Again, the basis is going to be the C major scale. Remember C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, where we have whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, or 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1 as a whole step, half step progression. And the basic information that an interval gives you is how far apart two notes are from each other. There are 8 main intervals and a couple of variations within those 8. First of all, it's the prime unison. This is 2 notes that are no step away from each other. C is in perfect unison to C. The second is the distance between the first and the second note of a scale. So on the C major scale, the difference from C to D would be a major second. We are going to look at minor seconds in a second. That's a lot of seconds, right? Then we've got the third, from the first to the third note of the scale. The fourth, from C to F, the 5th from C to G, the 6th from C to A, the 7th from C to B, and finally the octave, which is from C to C, only we take the higher C instead. Now, the unison, the 4th, the 5th, and the octave are perfect intervals. That means that there are no real variations of that intervals, although, of course, there is an expert exception to the rule. Now, what about the black keys? The black keys are minor versions of those intervals. So the minor second would be D flat, the minor third would be E flat. There is no minor fourth. There is a sneaky minor fifth that is also called the tritone or the devil's interval, flat 5, very, very evil. Then we've got the minor sixth or flat 6, and we've got the minor 7. This is basically everything there is to know on the absolute basis of what intervals are. A lot of ear training is built on this knowledge. If you want to know more about ear training and how to develop melodies from that very rudimentary knowledge into very expert knowledge, I suggest you get the almost but not quite complete guide to songwriting, link in description. As always, if you've liked this, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, to like the video, to share, and to give me love. I give you love back. This is it. I see you next week. Bye-bye. Hey, this is Let's Talk Song. Welcome to 3 Minutes Theory Thursday, where you get the absolute musical basics in a very condensed and sometimes oversimplified way. In this episode 4, we are going to look at how to build chords. Now, if you're not very familiar with intervals, I suggest you watch episode 3 first. In general, it's a very good idea to watch the whole thing before coming back to episode 4. We're going to find out what intervals and chords have to do with each other and how to build every major and minor chord there is. So one very important thing at the beginning, something that I forgot to tell you with intervals, is that each interval consists of a certain number of half steps. So for example, the smallest interval, the minor second, consists of 1 half step. From C to D sharp is 1 half step only. That way, every interval has a corresponding number of half steps. Major second 2, minor third 3, major third 4, fourth 5, flat 5 or tritone 6, fifth 7, and so on and so forth. Now, why is that important for building chords? Now, the basic form of chord that I want to teach you here is triads. As the name already suggests, it consists of 3 notes, always the 1, the 3, and the 5. Now, we've learned that the 1 and the 5 are perfect intervals. There is only one version of them. It's a bit different with the 3. We learned that there is a minor 3 and a major 3. Why are half steps important? Because they help us find the 1, the 3, and the 5 of a chord. Now, in the case of C major, we would have the 1, C, the major third, 1, 2, 3, 4, half steps. Major third is E, and the fifth, this is 7 half steps in total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. C, E, and G form a C major chord. The only difference between a major and a minor chord is the 3 in the middle. Sometimes it's major, sometimes it's minor. The minor third is 3 half steps only. So from the C, 1, 2, 3 half steps, we land on E flat. That means that C minor consists of C, E flat, and G. That way you can build major and minor chords throughout the keyboard or also on your fretboard. Let's look at one more example, which is A. A major is A, 1, 2, 3, 4, to the major third, which is C sharp, and then 3 more, so that we have 7 half steps. The fifth, A, C sharp, and E form an A major chord. The A minor chord is the same thing with the flat 3. 1, 2, 3 half steps. This is C, A, C, and E are the 3 notes that compose an A minor chord. I hope you liked this. If you did, make sure to like the video, to subscribe to the channel for more music theory and song analysis and covers and stuff. Also, if you want to amplify your theory and songwriting skills to a very crazy level, I suggest you take a look at the almost but not quite complete guide to songwriting available at spectreacademy.net. This was Let's Talk Song with 3 Minutes Theory Thursday. See you next week. Bye-bye. Hey, this is Let's Talk Song. Welcome to 3 Minutes Theory Thursday, where we get our basics of music theory in a very condensed and sometimes oversimplified manner. Today, in episode 5, we are going to look at the different chords that we can build within a major scale. Now, if you don't know what a major scale or what a chord is, I suggest you watch earlier episodes of this thing here. Everything is explained there. And again, we are going to do this by looking at the C major scale. As a reminder, this is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And we already know that a major chord is 1 major 3, 5, and a minor chord is 1 minor 3, 5. Now, with that knowledge in mind, we can now kind of reverse engineer what chords we get when we only take notes from a major scale. Starting with the 1, taking the root, which is basically just another word for 1, the 3, and the 5, we see if we count the half steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, plus 1, 2, 3, that we have got a C major because the E is the major third. If we do that on the D, the second note of the scale, we would see 1, 2, 3 minor chord, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, fifth. So on the second stage degree of a C major scale, we play a minor chord. The second chord is always minor. With E, it's 1, 2, 3, minor third, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is an E minor, so also the third chord in the scale is a minor chord. With F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we have got a major third. That means that F is the major chord. With G, 1, 2, 3, 4, major, 5, 6, 7, fifth, means that the G is also a major chord, and the sixth chord, A, is a minor chord. 1, 2, 3, minor third, 4, 5, 6, 7, fifth, A minor. Now, with the last chord in the scale, it's a bit trickier, because if we do from B to D, that looks like a minor chord, right? Because it's a minor third. But if we count all the way to the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we realize that the fifth is actually a flat 5 and not really a fifth. That means that this chord is neither major nor minor. It's in fact a diminished chord, something that we are going to look at in other sessions. For now, just forget about the 7 chord. You can take this knowledge and apply this to any scale. If we do that for a G major scale, remember that G major is the one with F sharp. We will also find major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, and that weirdo diminished thingy. What does that actually mean? Every time you hear somebody, for example, a reaction video person, talk about the 4 chord or the 5 chord, that means that they talk about the chord in relation to its scale. So if I say the 4 chord, for example, in C major, I always mean F major, because F is the 4 of C major. That might help you understand my videos a little bit better. If you liked this one, I suggest you like the video, you subscribe to the Let's Talk Song channel for more music theory and song analysis videos. Also, if you really want to go crazy on your songwriting and harmony knowledge, I suggest you get the almost but not quite complete guide to songwriting, available at spectreacademy.net. I will see you next week. Bye bye. Hey, this is Let's Talk Song. Welcome to 3-Minute Theory Thursday, episode 6, where we learn all the basics of music theory in a very, very compressed way. In the last 2 videos, we learned all about what chords are and what chord stage degrees are. So what chords you can use based on a major scale. Before we take this information and make actual music with it, I would like to tell you a bit about chord inversions and different voicings of the chords that are going to be very important when talking about chord progressions. Now remember that a chord triad always consists of the 1, the 3, major or minor, and the 5. The thing is, the 1, the 3, and the 5 don't have to be stacked on top of each other in order to make that chord triad sound like a chord triad. We could also switch up the order a little bit, and this is what chord inversions are. So going back to our C major scale and the C major chord we're going to start with, this is the root position of the C major chord. C at the bottom, then we've got E, then we've got G. We can also take the lower C and put it up an octave so that now I'm taking away the lower C. We start with an E, then we play a G, then C. This is still the C major chord, very important. This time it's only in first inversion, as they say. So first inversion is always with the 3 at the bottom. Second inversion follows the same principle. We take the lower note and put it up an octave so that we have G, C, E. This is the second inversion that always has the 5 in the bass. This we can do with all the chords in the C major scale. So D minor in first inversion is that, and second inversion is that. E minor in first inversion is that, and in second inversion is that. Remember to always take the lower note and put it up an octave. F, first inversion, second inversion. G, first inversion, second inversion. A minor, first inversion, second inversion. B diminished, first inversion, second inversion. Now why is that important? In the next video I'm going to show you why changing the inversions of a chord is a very, very sensible thing when talking about chord progressions. The last thing that I want to talk about in this video is how the bass, in the case of the piano, how the left hand can really help hammer in that inversion. Remember the C major chord? To really punch in the C as a bass note, we can also add the C in the bass an octave below. Now if we play inversions, a very, very sensible idea would be to follow the inversions from the right hand with your bass note as well. In that case, we'd also notate the chord a little bit differently. We would say that it's C with E in bass or C with G in bass, something that you notate with the chord symbol, a slash, and then the note you would like to have. So in that case, it would be C/E or C/G. This is everything that I can teach you in 3 minutes about chord voicings and inversions. If you like this, please make sure to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, to give me comments and say what you think of it. If you want to take your songwriting skills to the next level, please check out the almost but not quite complete guide to songwriting, available at spectreacademy.net. Stay tuned for more music theory videos. See you next week. Bye bye. Hey, this is Let's Talk Song. Welcome to 3 Minutes Theory Thursday, episode 7. Today we are going to look at the most common chord progressions in the key of C major. The first chord progression that I want to show you is the 1-4-5 progression. Remember that 1, 4, and 5 are the Roman numerals for the stages of a scale. So in the key of C major, we would have C, F, and G. Now we could play this, and like this, all in root position. But this is not very economic in a way. So you would have to move your hands around very, very much. So this is why I'm using inversions. I'm using the root position for C major. Now I'm going to the second inversion with 5 and bass, which happens to be the C as well, for the F, so that I have as little movement between chords as possible. And with a 5 chord, I can do the same. I can go just up or I can go down, depending on my choice. So 1, 4, 5, 1, 1, 4, 5, 1 can have different voicings, can have different inversions, but is a very, very common chord progression used, for example, in Twist and Shout, used in a lot of actually 50s, 60s blues, rock and roll classics. Now, the second chord progression that everybody knows is the 1-5-6 minor 4 progression. C, G, played in first inversion in that case, A minor, and G. Now, the number of songs that use that 1-5-6 minor 4 progression is just incredible. I suggest you watch the YouTube video by The Axis of Awesome, who have done a brilliant job in combining all great pop songs and showing that they basically all use that chord progression, which is why I sometimes also call it the axis of awesome, just like that. The third chord progression is basically the axis of awesome starting on the third chord of the progression, which was the 6 minor. So the progression is 6 minor, 4, 1, 5. A minor in that case, 4, F, 1, C, and 5, G. A minor, F, C, G. See how little movement there is between chords because I'm using those inversions? This is something that, for example, Eagle Eye Cherry and Save Tonight uses, and there are many, many other examples of that variation of the axis of awesome chord progression. Chord progression number 4 is the 2 minor 5 1, something that was created in jazz music but has found its way into pop music as well. 2 minor, D minor, 5 G, and 1 C. 2 minor 5 1, another very, very important jazz and pop progression. And the last progression that I want to tell you about here is the drop of fifth sequence, something that we have seen quite a lot in pop music analysis on that channel. The drop of fifth sequence is called like this because it drops a fifth from chord to chord. Most pop songs start on the 6 minor. You go down from 6 minor to 2 minor, from 2 minor to 5, from 5 to 1, and this is the shortened version of the drop of fifth sequence. A minor to D minor to G to C. You can take it to the next level by continuing everything until you reach the A minor chord again. I guess this is everything that I can teach you in 3 minutes about 5 of the most common chord progressions in pop and rock music. If you like this, please make sure to give me the thumbs up for the video, to subscribe to the channel, to leave me friendly words in the comment section. Also, please take a look at the almost but not quite complete guide to songwriting, available at spectoracademy.net, link in description. I will see you next week with another music theory snack. Until then, bye bye. Hey, this is Let's Talk Song. Welcome to 3 Minutes Theory Thursday, where you get all your music theory basics in a very compressed way. In this episode number 8, we are going to learn all about chord functions. Now, when talking about the chords in a major scale, something that we've learned in an earlier episode, we can say that there are 3 main functions of those chords, namely the tonic function, the subdominant function, and the dominant function. Now, each major chord in the major scale, namely the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord, fulfill one of those functions each. The first major chord, the 1 chord, has a tonic function. Tonic function basically means that it feels like home. Now, in the key of C major, the C major chord is the tonic chord. It very much feels like home. Every time we move around the chords and then we land on the 1, everything seems fine. Now, with the dominant chord, the 5 chord, which in the scale of C major is the G major chord, it's the exact opposite of a home chord. It's a chord that really builds up tension and wants us to move somewhere else, namely to the tonic chord, namely to the home. It's got a very strong pull that I think you can hear best when I play the dominant chord followed by the home chord. See how nicely it resolves? The G builds a lot of tension and everybody wants to go home. Now the 4 chord, in the case of C major, the F major chord, is the so-called subdominant chord, or has a subdominant function. In our songwriting course, we describe this subdominant function as a kind of a floaty vibe. Something that doesn't really feel like home, that builds a little bit of tension, but is not as powerful as the dominant 5 chord. So it's a floaty vibe that I think you can hear best when playing the tonic chord followed by the subdominant chord and back. 1 chord, 4 chord, 1 chord, 4 chord. See, home, float, home, float. It is not really a strong pull as with the dominant chord. And many people say that because the subdominant chord has not really a very clear home characteristic or a very clear dominant characteristic, that it's kind of the hardest to spot when doing ear training. Now that basically leaves us with the minor chords and the diminished chord in a major scale. Remember that the 2, the 3, and the 6 chords of a major scale are all minor chords, and the 7 chord is a diminished chord. Now the 6 minor chord shares 2 notes with the 1 major chord, namely the 1st and the 3rd note of the scale. This is why it's sometimes also called the relative minor. In the case of chord functions, we could say that the 6 minor chord also has got tonic function. It's still home, maybe a sadder home. Just like that, the 2 minor chord shares 2 notes with the 4 major chord and therefore has a subdominant function, which we can hear quite nicely in stuff like the jazz chord progression that we talked about in the episode before. With the 3 minor chord, it's a bit more complicated. Yes, it shares 2 notes with the dominant chord, the 5 chord, but it also shares 2 notes with the 1 chord, the tonic chord. And when we play the 3 minor chord after the 1 chord, we don't really have that strong pull that we would get from the 5 chord. It's not really leading anywhere, right? So we can't really say that it has got dominant function. Instead, it feels a little bit like the parked car in your driveway with the engine running. So we are kind of home, we kind of want to leave. The 3 minor chord is really complicated when talking about chord functions. And then we have got the 7 chord, the diminished chord, which is clearly very similar to the 5 chord, to the dominant chord in terms of its function. This you can prove by playing the 7 diminished chord instead of the 5 chord. So in a 1-4-5-1 progression, if we play the 7 diminished instead of the 5, it will still have that dominant pull. Listen to this. See how everything wants to resolve back to the C major chord, which clearly means that the 7 diminished chord also has got dominant function. Now, why is all of this important for songwriting? Well, that's easy. Sometimes you just need that strong tension that you, for example, also have in the lyrics, and you want to underline this musically. Take a dominant chord. Sometimes you want to kind of talk about something undecided and floaty in a way. Try the subdominant chord or the relative minor. Sometimes you want to describe your longing for home. Guess what? You can take the tonic chord and underline this musically. So in terms of prosody, how lyrics and chords go together, chord functions are super interesting and important. And this is everything that I can teach you in 3 minutes about chord functions. Now, if you like this video, please make sure to give me the thumbs up, to subscribe to the channel, to give me friendly comments, and to spread the word. Thank you for your trust and love. If you want to take your songwriting skills to the next level, I suggest you take a look at the almost but not quite complete guide to songwriting, available at spectreacademy.net. This was 3 Minutes Theory Thursday. I will see you next week. Bye-bye. Hey, this is Let's Talk Song. Welcome to 3 Minutes Theory Thursday, where you get all the music theory basics in a very compressed way. In this episode, number 9, we are going to learn all about seventh chords in the major scale. Now, remember that in an earlier episode, we defined a chord or a triad basically as 2/3 stacked on top of each other. Now, with seventh chords, all we do is basically stack another level of thirds on top of this already existing triad, forming a chord that consists of 4 notes. Now, in the key of C major, when we start with the 1 chord, the tonic chord, the C major chord, we can take this shape and just put another third on top of it. Now, the new note is the B note. The B is 1/3 up from the G, a major third, in fact, making this stacking of thirds a major third followed by a minor third followed by a major third. 1, 3, 5, major 7. This is also why the chord is called C major 7. The major being both the word for the major chord and the word for the interval major 7, which is kind of confusing, I admit that. There is another major chord with a major 7 in the C major scale, namely the F major chord, making this the second major 7 chord of the C major scale. Now, with the third major chord, things look a bit different because the G major chord, if we take a scale-related note and add it to that triad, we would come up with the F. And now the F is not the F sharp, which would turn it into a major 7, but the regular 7. This is why the G, in the context of the C major scale, if it's a 7th chord, is also called a G7 chord, or also dominant 7 chord, because it's the dominant chord. Now, with the minor chords in the scale, things aren't too diverse because they all add the same thing. Let's look at the D minor chord and add the 7th, which, if we keep the notes from the scale, would be the C. Now, the interval between the D and the C is a minor 7, and it's also a minor chord, which is why this chord is called D minor 7. With the E minor, it's the same thing. Stack another third on top of it, find out that it's the minor 7 interval, and this is also the E minor 7 chord, and with A minor, it's the same thing. Take the 7th note, which in that case would be the G. A to G is minor 7, it's a minor chord, and that's why we call it A minor 7. Now, of course, again, the diminished chord does everything differently. The diminished chord has got 2 minor thirds stacked on top of each other. Now, what follows, if we keep it in the C major scale, is a major third. From F to A, it's a major third. From B to A, it's a minor 7. This thing here is called minor 7 flat 5. I'm terribly sorry about that. Just learn that by heart. What I can tell you is, it's just not a very beautiful name. So in terms of chord stage degrees, when we talk about 7th chords, we have got 1 major 7, 2 minor 7, 3 minor 7, 4 major 7, 5 7, dominant 7, 6 minor 7, and 7 minor 7 flat 5. This was everything I can teach you in 3 minutes about 7th chords in the major scale. If you like this, please make sure to give me the thumbs up, to subscribe to the channel, to give me friendly comments, to look at the almost but not quite complete guide to songwriting available at spectreacademy.net. I'll see you next week with the last episode of Season 1 of this 3 Minutes Theory Thursday. Until then, have a great life. Bye-bye. Hey, this is Let's Talk Song. Congratulations, you've made it to the last episode of Season 1 of 3 Minutes Theory Thursday, where you get all the music theory basics in a very compressed way. In this last episode, I'm going to make the desperate attempt to explain modes in 3 minutes to you. So let's get going. Now, there are 7 modes: the Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian modes. You know one mode already, which is the Ionian mode, because the Ionian mode is the one that the major scale that we all know is based on. So This is the C major scale, also called the C Ionian scale, with its very characteristic half steps between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. So what those other modes basically do is take those two half steps, 3, 4, 7, 8, and move them around. The Dorian scale with all white keys is the D Dorian scale. Moving those two half steps on the positions of 2, 3 and 6, 7. The Phrygian mode with only white keys is the E Phrygian mode. Moving the half steps between the first and the second and the fifth and the sixth note. Then we've got the F Lydian scale, with half steps between 4, 5 and 7, 8. G Mixolydian, with half steps between 3, 4 and 6, 7. A Aeolian, with half steps between 2, 3 and 5, 6. And finally B Locrian, with half steps between 1, 2 and 4, 5. Now we can group those 7 modes into one group of 3 major modes, which are the Ionian, the Lydian, and the Mixolydian modes. Those 3 modes share the major 3, but they differ in tiny details. The Lydian mode has a sharp 4 or sharp 11, while the Mixolydian mode has a minor 7, creating a different flavor within the major mode. The second group is the minor modes, namely Dorian, Phrygian, and Aeolian. The strongest characteristic of the Aeolian mode being the flat 6, while the Dorian mode has a regular 6, and the Phrygian mode is characterized especially by its flat 2. And then we've got the outsider mode, which is Locrian. It's basically a diminished mode because it has got a minor 3rd and a flat 5, and it also has got this Phrygian flat 2, so it's very, very spooky. In pop and rock music, the most important application of modes is modal interchange, where you go to another mode in the same key, like for example moving from C Ionian to C Lydian, borrowing that sharp 4 to create a floaty feeling, for example. This is something you can experiment with, especially in terms of finding cool individual chords to spice up your chord progressions. Now, I'm not really sure if I could stay under 3 minutes. This was everything I can teach you about modes in a very, very short time. Now, if you liked this episode and the complete season 1 of 3 Minutes Theory Thursday, please, please, please give me the likes, give me the subscriptions, give me the friendly comments. Also, please consider purchasing the almost but not quite complete guide to songwriting, available at spectreacademy.net, link in description below. Thank you for your love and support. I will see you soon. Bye bye.